On the news at 5:30 this evening, Philip Schofield gives emotional interviews and says he's broken by the scandal around his former TV show. The ex-television star says he's lost everything, but says he's deeply sorry for the hurt caused by his relationship with a younger male colleague on the programme. Remaining defiant to the end of the school year, Enoch Burke says his continuing presence at a Westmeath school was justified as it breaks for the summer. Dublin Airport warns passengers they may be turned away this weekend if they turn up without a car parking space booked in advance. Targets likely to be missed. The government's under pressure to dramatically up its game on climate change. And the sandbag that brought down the president, the White House says Joe Biden is fine after his spill on stage. Good evening. Well, the former television presenter Philip Schofield has been speaking about how his daughters have helped bring him through the chaos of the past week. And without their support, he said he wouldn't be here. In his first interview since his dramatic exit from ITV's flagship daytime programme this morning, the 61-year-old said he's broken, has lost everything and accepted his career is over. He said he's sorry for the carnage he's caused over his relationship with a younger colleague on the show. Well, the following report from Aisling Ní Cúistile contains details that viewers may find upsetting.
But we weren't boyfriends, we weren't in a relationship. I was really in a mess with my own sexuality at the time, and it just happened.
How old was he at this stage?
20, 21.
Breaking his silence, Philip Schofield has given interviews to the BBC and The Sun following weeks of coverage about his affair with a much younger colleague while he was still married.
I think I understand how Caroline Flack felt last week. If my daughters hadn't been there, I wouldn't be here.
Mr. Schofield said he was utterly broken and ashamed, but insisted he did not groom the man and that he would die sorry.
How old was this young man when you first had any kind of sexual contact with him?
20.
Did you have any kind of sexual relationship or sex with him when he was underage?
No, God, no. And we become mates. We were mates. You know, around the studios, you hang out together, you know, you chat to each other, that sort of stuff. And then, in my dressing room one day, something happened. Which, you know, obviously I will regret forever, for him and for me.
It's a top story today, and we do not want to shy away from it.
The interview being covered on the News Review on This Morning, the ITV programme Mr. Schofield hosted.
Oh, I'm just finding it really painful because obviously, you know, I loved Philip Schofield, and it's weird because I still love Philip Schofield. However, what he's done is wrong. He's admitted it, he's said sorry.
The 61-year-old resigned from ITV last week and was dropped by his talent agency after admitting the affair was unwise but not illegal.
There is an innocent person here who didn't do anything wrong. But stop with him. Leave him alone now.
An external review is being carried out at the station to determine who knew what and when.
Is this the tip of the iceberg? Are there more allegations and revelations to come, or as far as you're concerned, is it all out?
It was my biggest, sorriest secret.
Aisling Ní Cúistile, Virgin Media News.
And if you've been affected by any of the issues raised in that report, help is available at the number on screen now. Right, let's get the latest now from London and news correspondent John Bever. John, what's the reaction been to the interview there?
Well, this media circus certainly is rolling on, isn't it? Those who think this deserves to be headline news, well, they're certainly still very interested in it, trending on Twitter, and it's been the front page of the papers for most of the last 2 weeks, it would seem, here in the UK. Interestingly as well, not just the tabloids, although they, of course, are running it more often, it's also spilt over into some of the broadsheet newspapers as well. So obviously a huge deal because Philip Schofield is a very well-known celebrity here. He has been on TV for an awfully long time, for several decades. So, of course, it's getting a lot of attention. But this big interview, especially the interview with the BBC that we've just been hearing excerpts from, I think a lot of the conversation has started to shift towards the mental health aspect of this. We've been hearing more people saying that actually this is a media pile-on, and that this is someone who has done something unwise but not illegal, as he says, and that there needs to come a time that people start laying off him, especially because of that reference to Caroline Flack, of course. And that, though, just that mention of her meant that a lot more people piled on, saying that was disrespectful and not something he should have mentioned. So certainly it seems like this story isn't going away for the next few days at least.
And John, we know Holly Willoughby is due back on the couch there on Monday. Do you think will she survive this scandal?
I would think so. Certainly the tabloids today have been quoting a friend of hers saying that she has nothing to hide. She will cooperate fully with this external investigation that is going on. She says that her break that she's had was pre-scheduled. Certainly this week she was off on half-term holidays. I think last week was when they pulled her off air, when things were really starting to develop and more information was coming out about this. But you would imagine her return to the programme will just keep this rolling for yet a few more days. And I would think that will generate a lot more talking points, and you would imagine a lot of viewers as well. Of course, now a lot of the focus is on ITV. We've heard the chief executive has been asked to attend a meeting with the Parliamentary Committee of Culture, Media and Sport later in the month to discuss safeguarding issues there. So there are wider issues here at play as well, but certainly it seems like this is going to be going on for certainly into next week as well.
John Bever, live from London. Thank you for all of that. Now, Ireland is set to dramatically miss its targets for cutting greenhouse gas emissions by 2030. That's the stark warning from the state's environmental watchdog, which says the country must double down on its efforts to halve its carbon emissions by the end of the decade.
Under laws passed 2 years ago, Ireland has legally binding targets for trying to reduce its greenhouse gas emissions. Today's report shows how far short we're currently likely to fall. The law requires Ireland to bring its emissions down by 51% between the years of 2018 and 2030. The measures already implemented would bring them down by only 11%. But even if all of Ireland's additional quantifiable plans were followed through, Ireland's emissions would fall by only 29%. Little more than half of the overall total.
This is going to be really challenging, but we do have a plan in place now, and it's really about moving away from paper and into actually real implementation on the ground.
I think this is the kick in the backside the government needs. The message from the EPA today is very clear. We can still meet these targets.
But with only 7 years to define existing measures and outline new ones, has Ireland given up on meeting its target?
I think sometimes people focus a bit too much on the targets and on the strategies and on the legislation, and not enough on implementation. And what the EPA said today, I entirely agree with, is that we now need to focus relentlessly on action.
We have to do it in terms of sustainability globally, but also in terms of better quality of life as well.
One pronounced criticism is of the state itself. Some believe public bodies could be doing more to lead the way.
We're not seeing the kind of actions from the Gas Networks Ireland, from the IDA, from Teagasc, that show they understand what halving emissions actually means.
One such body might be paving the way. ESB today announcing a joint investment with Denmark's Ørsted to deliver a complex of wind farms off the coast of Cork.
The delivery of large-scale renewables will be a critical part of moving to a net zero world.
Partnerships like Ørsted and the ESB working together to decarbonise our electricity grid, to build huge wind farms offshore. That's exactly the kind of response that the country needs.
And it'll need more of it. Targets for cutting carbon emissions through the use of land will apply for 2030, but haven't yet been decided on. Gavin Riley, Virgin Media News.
Now, Dublin Airport has warned passengers they may be turned away this weekend if they turn up without a car parking space booked in advance. All 23,000 spaces are sold out, and the DAA says people should consider using public transport to get to the airport if they haven't already reserved parking. Well, the bank holiday weekend is set to be busy beyond the airport as well. Bloom is continuing to attract large crowds at the Phoenix Park, and Met Éireann says temperatures could hit 25 degrees Celsius in some parts.
It's one of the busiest days at Ireland's largest gardening festival. Bloom has taken over 70 acres of the Phoenix Park for the June bank holiday weekend. Today there was a strong showing from thousands of keen gardeners, the Taoiseach Leo Varadkar and the Sun.
We took the day off work so could come enjoy. No problem getting in. The crowds are nice size.
I'm actually on maternity leave and I've never been off on a Friday, so we said we'd use the maternity leave to our avail of the festival.
Came up from Sligo this morning.
It's good weather too. It's really been really fabulous for the whole thing, yeah.
And that sunshine is expected to hold throughout the bank holiday weekend and beyond, with Met Éireann predicting temperatures of up to 25 degrees.
Generally, nearly every day as we go through the weekend will be quite good, especially out in the west. They'll see 24, even 25 degrees. I believe yesterday we saw 25 degrees in parts of Limerick, so it'll be more of the same as we go through this bank holiday weekend.
The bank holiday will also prove busy for holidaymakers, with around 425,000 people expected to pass through Dublin Airport this weekend, on a par with pre-pandemic levels. But making your way to the airport is another challenge, with a shortage on parking spaces and a warning to consider alternative options.
It's very, very busy and there's high demand. We're down spaces on the campus. One of the private operators remains closed, so that's putting a real squeeze on our own 23,000 spaces. So if you can't find a space online, it probably means your day is booked out. So we would recommend you don't turn up to the airport and try and just book, because we can't promise you that there will be a space. You may be turned away, so you need to consider one of the alternate options, maybe a bus.
Others are planning to spend the long weekend a little closer to home, with more than 100,000 people expected in the Phoenix Park to round out the 17th year of Bloom. Hannah Murphy, Virgin Media News.
A man in his 40s has been arrested following a series of raids targeting organised crime gangs in Dublin. The searches at a number of locations across the city involved more than 70 Gardaí, along with support from the army. The raids resulted in the seizure of more than €200,000 in cash, which is thought to be linked to the gang's drugs and money laundering operations. Cocaine worth an estimated €20,000 was also uncovered, along with 174 rounds of 9mm ammunition found hidden in a plastic container wrapped in electrical tape. 3 high-powered stolen motorcycles were also recovered in the Finglas area. Gardaí say they're in the process of returning them to their owners. Mobile phones, laptops and financial documents were also seized. Now, revenue officers have seized almost 5 million cigarettes at Dublin Port. Smuggled cigarettes branded Lambert and Butler were discovered hidden in a consignment which had arrived from the Netherlands, marked plastic pipes and rubber seals. Revenue says the 4.8 million cigarette haul has an estimated retail value of €3.8 million. They were seized as a result of routine profiling and with the assistance of the detector dog Milo. A man remains in custody this evening following his arrest as part of the investigation into the fatal assault of a woman in Dundalk last week. The man in his 20s was detained yesterday on suspicion of murder. The body of a woman in her 60s was found at a property on Bridge Street in the town on Wednesday of last week. Now, the teacher Enoch Burke has said his continuing presence at a Westmeath school was justified as it breaks for the summer holidays. He spoke defiantly as he left Wilson's Hospital School in Multifarnham this afternoon, the last day of the term. Well, our reporter Nicole Gernon is there for us this evening. And Nicole, will you take us through what Enoch Burke had to say?
Well, Colette, Enoch Burke saying today that as far as he's concerned, this is still his place of work, and pointing out that there is going to be a further appeal against the disciplinary proceedings. Now, of course, people will remember that since the 27th of January, he is being fined €700 every single day that he refuses to give an undertaking to abide by a court order to stay away from the school. 127 days have passed since that ruling, meaning that he's now amassed a fine of nearly €89,000. And in the meantime, he's also been formally dismissed from his post as a teacher here. He has also the Court of Appeal has ruled that the High Court was correct to issue those initial injunctions, and the High Court has ruled that his initial suspension from the school was in fact lawful, and that he is trespassing and he should pay €15,000 for that trespass, and has also ruled that he suggested that he should pay the school's legal fees in this regard. So as he was leaving the school today, I took the opportunity to ask him a couple of questions, and I started by asking him what he is hoping to achieve by turning up here continuously.
This is my workplace. This is my job. None of those court cases should have happened at all. I didn't bring my employer to court, they brought me. We're now going to have another appeal panel meeting on the 7th of July, and people are going to get well paid for it.
So, are you going to be back here in September then as well, given the fact that you have been dismissed, albeit, we'll see the outcome of this appeal?
There's a process here, as I said, 7th of July, it shouldn't be happening at all. It's a nonsense, it's an absurdity. I'm here every day, I'm here for work, I turn up for work.
But the court's ruled that you are trespassing, that you should pay €15,000 for trespass, so you're going to pay that?
I've made my position on that clear a long time ago, and the court you're talking about now, with respect, is the same court that isn't deciding on the issue.
But they have said that you are disobeying the court orders to stay away from school. Why not just obey the court orders but still hold your rights true to yourself?
This is my right. I have a right to a job. I have a right to my employment. I have a right to my work. That's why I'm here.
So, as you can hear there, Enoch still taking issue with that High Court judgment, saying it didn't address the core issues here, and still undeterred by the fines which will continue to run throughout the summer. Also not ruling out returning to the school in September, saying he is awaiting the outcome of that appeal hearing, which is due to take place on the 7th of July.
Nicole, thank you for all of that. Now, the Irish economy entered a technical recession at the beginning of the year, according to official growth figures. But economists have cautioned against the numbers, which they say are distorted by the activities of big multinational companies. Instead, it appears the domestic economy expanded over the first quarter, with increased spending by consumers.
The economy is in recession, but it's not really. It all depends on how you look at it. According to the gold standard measurement, gross domestic product, it shrunk by almost 5% in the first 3 months of the year. That's 2 contractions in a row. But if you look at the definition preferred by the Central Statistics Office, the real economy grew by almost 3%. Given the activities of the outsized multinational sector, Ireland's growth figures can swing wildly. Instead, the government today focused on the domestic number. Consumer spending grew over the quarter, with increases also seen in the construction and agriculture sectors. The Minister for Finance said he was focused on dealing with capacity problems, such as the lack of housing. A new survey from the property website daft.ie shows that demand for new builds has soared over the past year. Up 17% nationally, demand for new homes has more than doubled. And demand for ones that are priced between €400,000 and €500,000 has multiplied by almost 18. The website points the finger at the government's Help to Buy scheme. It assists prospective purchases up to the €500,000 threshold, hence the big bump in those looking to buy. Paul Colgan, Virgin Media News.
Now, coming up next on the news at 5:30, Elon Musk reclaims his title as the world's richest person. You're welcome back to the news at 5:30. A reminder now of the top story this evening. The former television presenter Philip Schofield has been speaking about how his daughters have helped bring him through the chaos of the past week. And without their support, he said he wouldn't be here. In his first interview since his dramatic exit from ITV's flagship daytime programme this morning, the 61-year-old said he's broken, has lost everything and accepted his career is over. Now, the White House says the US president is fine after he tripped on a sandbag on stage. The incident happened after he finished handing out diplomas at a graduation ceremony at the Air Force Academy in Colorado Springs.
The US president's latest mishap has gone viral after he fell on stage at a graduation ceremony for the Air Force. Joe Biden tripped over a sandbag at the event before being helped to his feet by an Air Force officer, as well as 2 members of his US Secret Service detail. The White House says the US president is fine after the tumble. Mr. Biden making light of the fall when he returned to Washington, D.C. yesterday evening. However, he's not the only one who's tripped up in recent weeks, as runners and riders queue up to become the next presidential nominee for the Republican Party. Ron DeSantis has been facing questions over his readiness for the national stage after his disastrous campaign launch on Twitter. There were multiple technical issues that delayed his announcement by almost 30 minutes as the platform kept crashing.
So they just keep crashing, huh?
Yeah, I think we've got just a massive number of people online, so it's servers are straining somewhat.
He's stepping into a crowded Republican primary contest that will test his strength against the former US President Donald Trump. The leading Republican contender, who was also the first former US president to face criminal charges, is mired in legal controversy. His lawyers are managing a number of cases for him and are also preparing for his trial, which is slated for next March in the middle of the US primaries. The former Vice President Mike Pence is also expected to announce his 2024 presidential bid in Iowa next week. Anne O'Donnell, Virgin Media News.
Now, Elon Musk has reclaimed his title as the world's richest person. His net worth has soared by $55 billion since January to $192 billion after a rise in the value of his electric car company Tesla. Bloomberg's Billionaires Index reveals he knocked the boss of the luxury goods giant LVMH, Bernard Arnault, off the top spot. Jeff Bezos and Bill Gates are in 3rd and 4th positions. In the US, a man known as the blue-collar brawler has wrestled another rogue alligator. Mike Dragich's bout with the reptile was caught on camera in Florida after he got a call about the creature roaming in a primary school car park in Jacksonville. Now, dramatic pictures of the smokestacks of a former power plant in Pennsylvania imploding, but it was a planned explosion. The smokestacks of the former Cheswick generating station turned into a cloud of dust after 5 decades standing. The owners are hoping to clear the site as quickly as possible. They're planning to sell the riverfront property. Thanks indeed, Will. Our next bulletin is at 7 over on Virgin Media 2. But for now, have a very good evening.